Alright, so I went and just drilled out these two holes here in the tube, and they're 1 inch down from the top, 1 inch apart. And I got this all faced off on the end, deburred. So now, let's see if everything fits together. There we go. It's a snug fit, but everything lines up. All right. So now, if I want to continue working on the valve body, or if I want to put on the top and bottom. Decisions. So now you can make the base as wide as you want. I think in the plans they call for a little over 3 inches, 3 1/8. I'll round up to that 3 1/8. They want for the base. This here is 2 1/4 inch stock that I'm going to use for the cap. That's simple enough to do. The bottom, you know, you can make it fancy as you want, you know, with the taper and everything else. And the trouble is going to be attaching this base, the base to the tube here. You know, if this was copper or brass, you could easily just solder it, or you could even weld it on there. Obviously I don't have any kind of facilities to weld, so what we might end up doing, I have some of those Aluma weld sticks, but you know what, and I was never able to get those suckers to work. What we might end up doing is making it such a nice snug fit that we can actually put this in there and Loctite it, and that should seal it. I mean, we're only holding oil, you know, it's not like we're I have some former gasket stuff here that we can put in the base and then Loctite the base to that, and you know, I don't see an issue with that at all. So that might be what we're gonna do. So yeah, what the hell, let's make the base first. Let's do that. Okay, so we have a piece of 2 5/8 stock here, and this is where we're deviating from the plans a little bit. It's just on the sizes of this. It's because you know, I wanted to use what I had. So what we have to do right now is we need to bore a nice spot for our tube to fit into. So that's going to be our base. So I need, I believe this actually is pretty close to, if not right on 1/2 inch on the OD of this. So it's a little oblong, so we're at its largest point we're 2 inches 10. So I'm going to bore this for a nice fit here, and we're going to see if we can Loctite this and seal this up without having to weld anything. So what I need to do is I'm just going to drill in a 1/2 inch deep with a drill to open myself up for my boring bar, and we'll be able to make a flat bottom hole to fit the bottom of this nice and snug. So that's what we're doing right now. Oh, and I already faced both sides of this. I faced one side and I put some parallels in the back here, and I faced the other side. And then we'll taper the edge once we're done. Okay, it should be roughly 1/2 inch deep. That's 475 thousandths, so it's close enough. So now we're just going to open that up and make that a flat bottom hole. Okay, that just wants to go on. This is actually pretty hot right now. So what I'm going to do is leave that diameter there. I'm going to just face up the inside till I get rid of that dimple and bring it out to this diameter here. I'll let it cool down and then we'll take our finishing pass. Okay, so I'm going to let this cool down, and then for our last pass what we can do is I'll measure it, I'll see how much I have to take off, we'll come in, we'll cut down to this shoulder, and then we'll face into the edge. But I got rid of that dimple, more or less. It's just pretty warm, so we want to let that cool down so we can get a nice accurate diameter. Okay, this is pretty cool now. I just polished up the end of this, and it just wants to go in there, so I'm just going to give it a little kiss and take off a couple of thousandths and get a nice fit in there. Like I said, we'll go in, we'll go down to that corner, and we'll face into the center. see if we fit. Yeah, that's a snug fit in there. That's a snug fit. Alright, so I like that. I'm going to polish that edge up just a hair. Okay, so now what I want to do is we're going to come out and we're going to turn down a little bit of the outside edge, and then we're going to cut an angle. It's just more or less for show. So I'm going to bring you out to a different camera angle, and we'll do that. Alright, so I'm going to just turn down the outside here by 1/8 of an inch long, and maybe about half the thickness of this. It's just arbitrary. It's nothing I'm going to measure. I'm not really worried about it. Okay, so we got a 30-degree angle set up. We can see how it looks. I want a lot more taper than that, so we'll bump her up to 60. That's not too bad. I can go for that. Alrighty. So that's pretty much done. What I'm going to do right now, I'll set up to Loctite this in place. So I'll run a bead of gasket sealer on the bottom, make sure everything's all nice and sealed up. And then we're off to the next step. Okay, so I've cleaned the edges here. What I'm going to do right now, just find me a knife. Alright, this is gasket material here. So what I'm going to do is just run a little bit on the inside here. This probably isn't necessary, but this just makes sure it ain't gonna leak. ready. And we'll run a bead of permanent Loctite around the edge of this. Okay, we're started in place. We're gonna give her a little tappa, tappa, tappa. That sucker ain't going nowhere. So there that is. Pretty comfortable in the hand there. All this is going to get polished up after. Alrighty, so now we're good with the tube there. I'm going to set that aside, let that dry and let that harden. And we're going to work on the cap. I'm trying to do everything with the 4-jaw first, and then we'll switch over to the 3-jaw because the ports are going to be holding hex bolts. So we're going to do the cap, and basically the cap is just going to be a piece that goes on there that's going to be center drilled to hold on to a screw that's going to go through and into this hole here, and it's going to seal with a gasket with an O-ring. So let's set up to do that. I'm going to use the smaller, I got some 2-inch aluminum. We're going to use that for the cap. Okay, I already have these both sides of this face. This is going to be our cap, and I got a spotting drill in there. Now we need to drill a clearance hole for the 1/4-28 screw that's going to be holding this down, and then we're going to open up the inside of this to the diameter of the tube, just like we did before, for about a length of 300 thousandths, or depth. And there'll be an O-ring groove in there. Unfortunately, I don't have the right O-ring for this. I thought I did, but I don't. So we're just going to wait on that. It's not a huge thing. It just seals this cap against spilling when you have it at an angle. You can either do an O-ring groove, or even if you don't have an O-ring, if you have a flat gasket, flat rubber washer or something like that, that'll mate up against the top of the tube, that'll work fine too. So I'm not really worried about it. So let's just get this hole through the middle here. Here we go. Cap is finished. So what I want to do now is we can start working on all the pieces for the valve body. So all that's going to be made out of hex bolts. So we'll change out the 3-jaw and get set up for that. Okay, so I got a few of these little 3/8 24 bolts, and I need to cut them down. So you can see, and we'll get a close-up of this when I start turning it. We backed it up with a nut, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hacksaw and cut it pretty flush with the nut, and then we'll face that end. And I'm going to also drill a 3/16 hole right through the middle. Now one of these is going to be for the rod for a trigger and piston, another one is going to be for our spout out, and the other one's going to be for the pickup tube. Now I wanted to use brass just to have a color contrast to this, but my supplier, my local hardware store, didn't have brass ones. It's not something, it's not that big, it's just an aesthetic thing, and it can easily be changed down the road. So I'm only going to do one of these. We need 3. I'm only going to do one on camera. So 2 more of these to do. Okay, you can see how that's set up there. So this top one is going to be the spout, and this bottom one here is going to be our trigger connected to our piston. So we're going to do that piece next. We're going to do the piston, O-ring groove, and all that stuff, and this is going to be spring loaded. So I'm going to use my collet setup for that. So let me get that going, and we can work on that. Okay, I'm just going to follow this, the dimensionings on here. The only thing though is, I mean, that's a 5/16 hole. I don't know why the diameter of this says 280 thousandths. That seems a little loose. I can make that a lot tighter, so I'm going to. This is a 5/16 rod, so I'll just take a little bit off of this. I already have the face and center drilled, so that way there we can just extend it here. I say somewhere in that neighborhood there. Tighten this back down. And we're going to pack something into the end here, just so this isn't a jingly jangling all over the place. Okay, so I'm just going to take a skim cut on this here. Let me extend this out just a scotch. Alright, let me get you a better angle and then we'll start turning this. Okay, so I'm going to take a skim cut of this. I have to turn my tool to be able to get right up against here. This is where a hand ground tool would be pretty good. That'll work. Alright, I just did a little skim cut on there. If you think I was not recording, I'm not sure. We'll find out when I go to edit this. But if not, I just did a skim cut. And all we're trying to do here is see... Okay, we got a nice fit in there. So now what we need to do is turn down the rod section, and that paper went right behind me. So you're looking, damn it, they don't have a length on that. Alright, let me do some math and figure out what that length is. Okay, we're about 1.25 inches. We want 3/16 diameter by about 1.25 inches length. That's actually probably going to be a little bit too long, but we can cut this off wherever we feel like it once we have the fit up. I'd rather have a little bit extra than a little bit shorter. So. This is aluminum, by the way. Okay, let's see where we are. Okay, so we got this for a nice fit. And pretty much just a little bit of wiggle, but nice smooth fit. So now what we need to do is make up our piston here and then part it off. We need an O-ring groove in it. So let me go look at the O-ring selection I have, and we can figure out how wide we need to make it and how deep we need to make it. Okay, sorry, my camera died a little bit when I was doing the O-ring groove. So basically, there are O-ring fit guides out there, and it'll tell you the depth. And basically, I went by one of those and got the depth that we needed and the width that we needed for the O-ring that we're going to use. And I got a little cutter here if you can see the tip of that. I just used to plunge in and get it, and we're good in there. Now to measure the depth, whatever depth they give you, in this case, in my case with the O-ring I'm using, it was 55 thousandths. That's actually 55 thousandths per side. That's 55 thousandths off the radius, not off the diameter, so just be aware of that. So we went in with a 55 thousandths cut. Now I measured it using a dial indicator mounted against my tool post here, so I can get an accurate depth measurement, because these are direct reading dials. They read off the diameter, not the radius, so that way there I didn't have to do any multiplication. There's less chance of an error. So we're good there, and what I'm going to do is just take a quick file and just, you know, get both inside edges there. Now if you look at the way the plans are here, they have a little kind of step on the other outside edge, and that's for the spring to actually register on. I don't know, I mean, I have an assortment of springs. I'm not using the ones that they call out in the plans, because I had to order those. I got just what I could get locally, and I may or may not be able to do that. I'm gonna check right now. If I can do that, then yeah, I'll turn a little step on the end, but I might not be able to. So let me check real quick. Okay, so there it is with the O-ring in place, and I'm going to drop the spring, of course. Let me zoom you out a little bit, make my life easier. So pump that into there, pump this into here. And there's part of our pump. There'll be a cap, obviously, that goes on the front of this after the fact. But now that that's done, all we need to do is set up our check balls and our tension springs inside there for those. The other thing I just realized that I'm gonna have to do is on the bottom here, where this is, I'm gonna have to round this off. As you can see, the hex here, even if I put it flat, is still out beyond this curve. So I'm gonna have to just kind of nibble away at the outside there, so that way there I can fit it in the valve body, or I can make my own, but I'll just round this off. This doesn't have to be super tight, and it's gonna have an O-ring there anyway, so I'm not really worried about that. So I'll just looking at this eyeball wise, if I take it right down to the end of the flats there, I'm good there. So I'm going to do that off camera. Okay, so we have this is the nut that I just turned down there, round, and put a gasket on it and put a tube in it. Now you have to measure the length of the tube to fit whatever length yours it should be to reach the bottom. You can also kind of 45 it forward, so when you tilt it forward, it goes into the pool of oil. Now, here's one. Here's the outlet spout. Okay. Here's the inlet from the bottom, and here's the valve block. So, we need to put check valves and springs in it. So we need a spring for the piston, obviously, and the piston itself, which just rolled off my desk. It's right here. So, right like that. And that's going to fit into there. So we'll put that on last. What we need to do is we need a check ball and the spring on the top. We need a check ball without a spring on the bottom. And that should be it, actually. So we got 3/16 stainless steel balls here. I'm going to drop one right in the top. Thanks to whoever suggested this on my previous video. If you give the ball there a tap, you'll make a nice seat for it. Okay, same thing on the bottom here. I'll drop it on the floor. So now as far as the spring goes, I'm kind of just feeling this out. We may need to adjust this. Now this seems pretty good pressure wise, but I know it's too long, so I'm gonna have to cut a little bit of this off. So we'll try right about here. And get a set screw. Now they had a hex screw on the top of this, but this should work. This set screw will work just fine. Just gotta get my sealer, which I just had in my hand. So I had everything laid out a second ago, but I just moved everything around, so. Just a little bit of sealer on this. Instead of using an O-ring, so use some gasket sealer. And let me get this started here. Okay, so theory is when you press the trigger in, that pressure will lift the that ball up and allow it to activate. I'm going to try that there for pressure. And then this bottom one here. Actually, the bottom one needs to sit on this surface here. So you can see that tube is a little bit further down. You can just lay the ball on top. Tappy tapper. Alright, I just found a little bit of a problem. Not that huge of a problem, but you can see when I put this up nice and flush, when I put the ball on here, the ball is actually in that piston bore. And we don't want that, we want it below. So I want to take about half of this off so that the ball can sit down in. So let me just put it in the lathe, and I'll just face about half of this nut off, and then or half of that bolt off, and then we should be good to go. I'll say, alright, so we're just going to use this piece of brass stock for the nozzle and also the trigger pad. So we're just going to face it and trim off this thread, and probably bring it down to somewhere close to 1/4 inches. Actually, I'll probably just take the thread off because that feels pretty good on my finger. And then we'll drill a little hole, and we will we'll drill a little hole so that we can put it on the rod, and then we'll round over an edge. You know, make like a little pad for your finger. So go ahead and do that. Alright, so I'm going to bring this down to 3/8 of an inch. We'll go 1/8 inch up the middle, 5/32, about 1/4 of an inch in, and then we'll probably part it off, flip it around, and then I can do the taper. So let me get my turning tool here. Okay, there it is. So I'm going to clean it up, and we'll Loctite it to the pump, and we'll test it out, then we'll take it all apart, clean it up, and we'll polish it. Okay, so here's all the pieces shined up. And I just made a quick knurled screw for the top. Let's put an O-ring on there. Probably doesn't need it, but you know, we got O-rings, so might as well put one on here. So ID 1/4 inch is a number 10. A little O-ring right on the bottom of that guy. So we're ready to get it all together here. Sometimes it's just a pain in the butt getting these lined up, but they do line up. You just gotta get them perfect. There we go. Lined up now. Alright. Adjustable. And because I'm anal retentive, make sure that they're both facing the same way. And this requires a ball on the bottom, and the piston goes right in there, and then that screws in like so. Okay. So I'm going to fill her up with some spindle oil. The only thing I got to get is a seal for the top of this, otherwise we're good to go. And this holds down the top. That could actually be a little bit bigger. I might redo another one, make that bigger. There's a nice weight to it though. So what's happening here? Uh-oh. Alright, we got to work, and I tracked down the issue. I just had to tighten this down a little bit to make the seal. But we're working pretty good. It's comfortable in the hands, it's got some weight to it, and you can see what it puts out for oil. You could probably adjust it a little bit. If you cut down that piston just a hair, you could probably get more oil out of it if you make it smaller. And also if you make this nozzle a little bit tighter, you could probably get a little bit more pressure out of it. But for what I'm going to use it for, which is holding my spindle oil, this will let me get into the spindle oilers and also into the motor in the back, as everything goes all fuzzy on you. get into the 2 spindle oilers and also the oilers on the motor and the apron, and get where I need to get with that. So yeah, you can make as many of them as you want too. They're relatively easy to make. The hardest part is just getting this these nice and flat on the bottom. And if you had a mill, you can bang out those blocks one after another relatively easy. It's a little bit harder on the drill press if you don't have a permanent setup. The only other thing that I would probably change here is I have this trigger kind of like a button. I have it convex. I probably do a concave, something that's more comfortable on the finger, and maybe a little bit bigger. You know, this is just probably about 5/16 of an inch or so. I would do a little bit bigger, something probably maybe around 1/2 inch, more comfortable on the finger, but otherwise, pretty good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one. The only other thing I have to do is just put a nice seal up here, and we're all set.